Good morning and welcome back to I Know Enough to Be Dangerous Farm. My name is Rob, and today's adventure we're going to fertilize the lawn. So this is our second application, which means it's just around Memorial Day. A good rule of thumb of putting down applications in the Northeast is use the holidays: Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day. So the first application we've already done, and that's as soon as we can get on the lawn. Here in upstate New York, you can't put down anything with pre-emergent or anything until I think it's April 1st, but check in your local area. So the first application was a pre-emergent with fertilizer, it's called, and that helps with grassy weeds and puts a layer of herbicide down all through the season. That's one of the applications you should not skip. There's some more that you should. Sorry, the the chemical companies that push 4 or 5 applications of fertilizer. It is not necessary. In my previous life, I used to do this for a living, so I'm not just talking off of a couch commander position. I've actually done this in the field for several years. Like I said, the first application, as soon as you can get on your lawn, do it, because some of the annual weeds will germinate fast, and pre-emergent herbicide will not kill anything that's already germinated. It takes care of seeds that are trying to germinate, putting a layer on your lawn. So the second application is a little different. We have some established lawn, which means it's been here for a growing season and it's been mowed a couple times. And we also have some new seeding from last fall that we have not put anything on, but a little bit of organic fertilizer. And this time of the year, we've had a lot of rain, and I could see it stressing. There's green and some lime green. You won't be able to pick it up on the camera, I don't think, but I'll show you the grass and the differences. So some of the lawn is going to get what's called a weed and feed. And I recommend going to Site One. They're not a sponsor, but I used to work there, and they have some nice product. And you might as well shop where the pros go, right? I don't know if that's their slogan, but it should be. It's a Let's Go fertilizer. It is a weed and feed. The herbicide is lockup. You don't have to be licensed or anything. As long as you're putting it on your own property, you can go into Site One and buy this. It's a weed and feed. The rate will depend on your spreader. If you do have a Let's Go spreader, I have an older Let's Go spreader. Well, it used to say Let's Go on it, but it has letters here instead of numbers. Some of the newer ones have numbers, but letters, and the letters correspond to what you want to put on. I have found on my particular spreader that G is the sweet spot on getting the right rate down on the fertilizer. So I do use the Carbon Pro on some of the other areas, but I'm not doing it now. We're going into summer, which hopefully we're going into summer. It's a little chilly today, but I don't need that grass growing aggressively into the summer months. That's why I'm putting the weed and feed down to take care of any broadleaf weeds that the lawn has. I don't spray liquid. I don't spray anything liquid. This is the only way I can control the broadleaf weeds, is put a weed and feed down this time of year. And if they're bad enough, do it in the fall too. Put a weed and feed down for your last application. So you really only need 3 applications. The first one in the spring, fertilizer and pre-emergent. If you have new seeding, just put down straight fertilizer. Second application around Memorial Day, and that's the weed and feed. If you have established lawn, again, if you have new seeds, just use the straight fertilizer, and you can take care of those weeds in the fall. So we're doing the weed and feed and straight fertilizer in some of the areas. The third and last application, sorry people that push 5 applications, is in the fall, and that I usually do another weed and feed. But if you have a nice thick lawn, established lawn, just save yourself some money and just use straight fertilizer. So the straight fertilizer we're using today, again, not a sponsor, just this is where I picked it up, is our famous Triple 10. We use this in our blend with our Christmas trees, but my newer seeded areas, that's just getting the straight fertilizer in the fall. everything will probably get a weed and feed. Now, I say 3 applications, that's all you need, with an asterisk. If you have an insect problem or a fungus problem, if you're in the south, we don't have much fungus up here in the northeast, but if you have an insect problem, you don't need an extra application. Your second application or your last one, just use fertilizer and insecticide mix. Don't use the weed and feed. Or get some granular fertilizer and mix it up into your third application or second application, depending on what kind of pest you have. That's the products we're using today. That's the rate we're using and the areas we're using it in. So this lawn is a great example. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a swale here to the left. It's nice and green still. To the right, the grass is a year younger. It still stresses when we get close to summer, so I want to give that another blast of nitrogen, not too much though, but the 10/10 will have the phosphorus and the potassium, and in upstate New York you can't buy, or in New York in general, you can't buy fertilizer with phosphorus for some reason, and that's one of the main, I know what the reason is, but we're not getting into that. And phosphorus is one of the main ingredients on root growth, so we want the phosphorus in our new grass, and our older grass could use it too, but it's just, you know, it's tough to get it in there. So that's why the analysis on the weed and feed doesn't have any phosphorus in it. So that's what we're doing there. Further down, you can see it's really light green. This is nice and thick. See, there's a thistle there. That's why this is a thistle, and that's why we're using the weed and feed. But other than that, it looks very good. But this is also getting a little, you know, a little light green for me. And here's one of our newer seedings last fall. It's really tough. It's not coming in very good, but you can see it has a lot of broadleaf weeds in it. So I'm excited about getting the weed and feed down in this area. It goes around, wraps around the back of the house, but that should thicken that area right up. Again, back to the analysis. This is what I was talking about. So this is 10/10. This has 10% nitrogen in it, 10% phosphorus, 10% potash in it. So the 10/10. You can also use that for a starter fertilizer too. So like I said, you can't get regular fertilizer or weed and feed, especially weed and feed with phosphorus in upstate New York. So this is 1804. It's a good weed and feed. The nitrogen's not too hot for this time of year. In the fall, you might get like a weed and feed, or some places call it a winterizer, and the nitrogen is way up there, like a 3202. Man, if you like cutting grass like every 3 days, yeah, put the 32 whatever on there. But otherwise, use the 1804 or something similar, weed and feed, in the fall also. You're still going to get the same green up, and your grass isn't going to grow crazy, because you don't want that either. You don't want your grass growing crazy going into the winter, because that's when you get snow mold. It gets too tall, you can't get out there for the last cutting, it falls over, and next spring you got snow mold. So just be careful. Sometimes the places are just selling what they got on their shelf. You really should go in there and tell them what you want. Ask for their suggestions on pests. You can get soil samples, all that good stuff. But now there's just apps you can take a picture of your lawn and what the problem is, and solve it from there, or go to Site One. The experts in there, they can help you out. So as far as equipment, this is what we're using. It's a Let's Go spreader. I think it's an 80-pounder. Most of it's stainless steel. This is on and off. I don't have the little agitator in there. There's supposed to be a screen in there too. I got this at a garage sale, like the usual. There is a deflector you can put on here in case you want to do sidewalks or close to edges of the house or whatever. But what you'll see I'll do, I'll tip it up on one wheel, and I'm not trying to be cool. I'm just putting the product just along the line. I'm not trying to spread it back and forth. And what you do with this kind of spreader is you can see your wheel marks, and then I'm going spreading to the next wheel mark. You'll see me, I'll show you in a minute, but what you'll do is you'll spread to the last wheel mark that you had, because the rate in front of your spreader is what you want to put on your lawn. And this goes for all spreaders, not just Lesco spreaders. The further away from the wheels you get like 100% what you want, then 75, then 50, then 25. So you have that spreader, you can see the material coming out, and you have that spreader coming to the last wheel mark. So in between the wheels is 100% of what you want, and in front of the wheels is 100% of the product that you want. Pro tip. As far as this lawn is a little broken up, but what we'll do is we'll go around the whole thing, and then we'll go back and forth. And another pro tip, if you're not good on striping, which means you're getting it heavy and then light and then heavy, and you see stripes on your lawn for after you fertilize, cut your rate in half. So say you have, I don't know what kind of spreader you have, a Scott spreader, and you're usually spreading on 10, cut it in half and go 2 different ways. I know it takes a little bit longer, but you won't get the striping until you get the correct material down, going one pass. Just cut the rate in half and go down your lawn, and then the second time go across your lawn, and you won't get the stripings of the green, light green, green, light green. Another pro tip. So let's put some of this stuff down. Like always, proper PPE. I have rubber boots on. I have these nylon pants because some of the material hits below the knee, and you really don't want any of this. You don't want regular fertilizer on you anyways, but especially this is a herbicide on this weed and feed. So a mask if it's windy or blowing back in your face, rubber gloves, all that stuff. When you're pouring it into your little container, all that dust coming up in your face, that is not good. So either play the wind, wear a mask, or both. But probably the dangerous part of spreading weed and feed is when you're filling the spreader itself and that dust of herbicide comes right up in your face and you're breathing that in. So have proper PPE, have the mask on. I'm not going to wear a mask because it'd be hard to understand me, and the wind's blowing that direction pretty good. So either play on the upper side of the wind and have your mask on. Fill your product on a driveway. I know it's a little bit more cleanup, but you don't want to fill it on the lawn and have a spill on the lawn, because there'll be a burn there, and it'll be there. If you're doing this professionally, the customer, it'll be there all season, and every time they look at it, they'll think of you. But if you do it on the driveway, it's a little bit more cleanup, but you should have a broom and a dustpan around anyways. So have it on the driveway, make sure it's closed. Get a special knife. Don't use the jackknife that's in your pocket to open up this. This is herbicide. You don't want this riding in your pocket. You start sweating and then that herbicide's on your leg. You don't want any of that. So just cut it nice. It's an 80 pound hopper, so it'll take this 50 pound bag. But again, throw this away appropriately. You don't want it rolling around the back seat or whatever your car. Just make sure you put that away. And if you have a lot of hills, this is all on a hill, so what I'll do is I'll go perpendicular to the hill after I go around once, and then I'll just go back and forth, not up and down the hill, just perpendicular to the hill. And sometimes, when I'm feeling really lazy, I only put half of the material in the hopper, then it's not so heavy. Make sure your tires are pumped up. I don't know what your tires are supposed to be pumped up to. Just make sure they're hard. It will make it a lot harder if the tire is soft. You're going to want to pull, just like a car, it's going to want to pull to one side or the other of the soft tire. So now we're good to go. We got the rate set. Once you get it set on your spreader, just take a little Sharpie and mark it right on there, so you don't have to think the next time you do it. So I don't know if you can see that, but my last pass is right here. So I want this material spreading out to my last tire track, and then I'll turn around and come back this way and do the same thing. My spreader will be over here spreading back to this tire track. So let's give it a shot. So I'm spreading it out to the last tire track. I've already gone around this perimeter, so shut it off. You don't want too much. And when you turn, the fertilizer is still pouring out, and that's why some people get swirls on the end of their lawn, is because they're not shutting their spreader off and they're trying to turn it. I don't know if you could see that tire track right there. That's what we're going to spread to. Not to where we stopped spreading the material, but to the tire track. So this rate is the same as this rate when we're done. We'll turn it back on, back it up, get it going, and then turn it on. And then that's going back to the last tire track. Get to the end, shut it off. Try not to get in the driveway. But if you're doing this professionally, you'd have a little leaf blower or something anyways. So in this area, this is the ditch that we fixed. We have established lawn coming up to new seeding, just starting to pop. You can see that, just starting to grow. Now, we don't want to put any weed and feed or pre-emergent on this area, so we'll come back with a little bit of straight fertilizer, not much though. So like I said earlier, some of those come with a flap, some other brands. You don't have to buy a commercial grade broadcast spreader like that. I picked it up, I used them before, I know they're great, but something like that, that'll last you a lifetime if you clean it off after every application. Not every year, every application, clean that off. You know, some Purple Power degreaser, pressure washer, then soak that thing with fluid film or something similar to fluid film. Again, you don't have to buy a commercial spreader. You can get the cheap ones, the plastic ones, and they'll last as long as they last. You can buy fertilizer at the box store. It's very fine. In my opinion, it doesn't last that long. They tell you to put it on way too heavy. Go to a place like Site One that services the professionals and sells to the public. They're a font of knowledge. They're not sponsored again, but they're a font of knowledge. You can get the same product the professionals are using. That's not restricted. There's some other stuff like liquid stuff that is restricted. You don't want to go into the liquid realm anyways. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to edge along a driveway or a sidewalk. It's the same procedure. If you have a spreader like this and you don't have the flap that comes down to restrict the spread going one way or the other, or invest in a little drop seeder, something like that to go along driveways if you got a long strip, narrow long strip along the house or the sidewalk or whatever. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ride it on the wheel. Again, I'm not trying to be cool. I'm just going to ride it on one wheel. There's one little close off on the bottom. You'll see me closing it off on the bottom of that spreader. And so that goes from 3 holes feeding the impeller to 1 hole feeding it. So that cuts the rate down, because we don't want, when I'm tipping the machine on its side, I'm still going 3 holes, same rate. It's going to be really hot right along the driveway or sidewalk. And again, it gets really hot along a sidewalk and driveway in the summertime, so you don't want to be stressing that lawn with extra nitrogen going into the summer doing this. So that's why you cut down to 2 holes feeding the impeller. It cuts down the rate. And I'm tipping it on the side so I don't bounce any material into the driveway. I'm keeping it right along where I want it. So here's the little lever I talked about. You shut that so you only have 2 holes. You back it up, you turn it on, you tip it up. Now I'm riding right along here and not getting any in the driveway. Another pro tip, if you are using your pickup truck as, you know, your UTV or side-by-side, so you're hauling fertilizer, you get any fertilizer in the bed of your truck or in the grooves of your tailgate, get that out of there. I mean, get it out of there fast, because you think salt eats your vehicle, wait till you have some fertilizer in there, and don't wash it out. If you can blow it out with a leaf blower or a broom, get it out that way. If you make that, if you wash it out, then all that salty residue is going on those nooks and crannies of your truck that they put in there. You know, the folds and the little welds and all that stuff. Get that stuff out of there. Another pro tip is we're going along the driveway. Even though we have full lawn to the left of us, we're still tipping it up a little bit, because if we go out here and only sprinkle along the material along the driveway, in front of the spreader is 100% the rate we went down, but again, to the right side, it's half at best. So we need to tip it along a driveway, especially to go up and around. Sometimes you'll see me hop the spreader. It's not a pun on the hopper on the spreader. I don't have the little agitator in the center, so if a clump of fertilizer, I can see when it stops dropping all three holes, the material on all three holes on the impeller. So I hop it to get that chunk that's whatever's plugging in that hole out of that hole, so I'm putting down the full rate. Otherwise, I'll see that there'll be lighter and darker patches in the lawn. So you'll see me hop it. I'll show you in a sec. So we're still riding along the driveway like that, but if it stops coming, I can literally hop it like that and go. Just be careful when it's full that you're not splashing material all over the lawn. Said you don't have to have this commercial spreader, but something similar. And if you buy like a Scott's or something and you buy their fertilizer, they'll have the rates on there and spreader settings and all that stuff. But if you do a little searching on the internet, you just put in your spreader. If you have an older commercial spreader, like this one is an older commercial spreader, I bet it's 25 years old, but somebody's actually taken care of it prior to me owning it. So that's good. Even stainless steel spreaders will rot out in the creases. What they do is they write out this dark stuff is the fluid film. I didn't get off of it, but it'll rot out here. The bolts are, you know, stainless steel, but they'll rot out, you know, the axle bushings and stuff like that. And as you can see on my spreader, there's buildup right there. That's a no-no. Always have a little putty knife or something. Get that off and scrape this nice and clean, because that's going to reduce your spread pattern, the width of your spread pattern. And here's that little lever that I opened and closed to change the rate without anything else. And then there's grease fittings, and I think the newer ones have a closed gearbox, but there's a grease fitting here. And you still can get these parts. This is, you know, not cheap plastic parts. These are, I think these are made in the USA. They used to be. But this black stuff is just the fluid film that I put on it, that it just, today's and the organic we put on the other day, just collects to it. That's one bad thing. But that purple power, spray that purple power on it, full strength, and full strength on this, because this is stainless steel. It's not going to fade any paint, so you ain't got to worry about that. Full strength, let her eat a little bit, and then wash it off with a hose or a pressure washer. Again, make sure you have, well, that's a little soft, probably, maybe that's why I was huffing and puffing, maybe not. Make sure you got tire pressure in both tires. It makes it a lot easier to push. And if it is, and if you do have a hill, just put half the bag in there. Nice straight lines, overlap where you can, but if you have trouble with that, put half rate, put your spreader at half rate, and do crisscross applesauce across your lawn, and you won't see any stripes. And make sure you shut it off when you come to the end so you don't get the little swirls. We don't want swirls. We don't want striping. None of that stuff. And you'll have a beautiful lawn. You need 3 applications. You don't need 4 or 5 unless you have an insect problem, which that's a separate application. You don't need 4 or 5. You don't need it really hot and green going into the summertime. It's just going to stress more. You don't need it growing aggressively in the winter. You're just going to get snow mold in the spring. Feel free to subscribe, leave some comments what else you want to see on the farm. Thanks for stopping by, and take care.